You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
I am so excited about my guest today. Her name is Bela Gandhi, and she is the founder of the Smart Dating Academy. It is one of the nation's top date and relationship coaching firms. They provide busy, successful professionals with date coaching and image consulting, professional photography, and online dating consulting. She is called the Fairy Godmother of Dating by the Huffington Post and Steve Harvey. She's the dating expert on the Steve Harvey Show. You might have seen her about 1 million times doing all these great specials. She's been on pretty much every large media TV, including Good Morning America, Fox Chicago. She contributes all the time to NBC, ABC, WCIU, The Today Show, Glamour, Redbook, The Wall Street Journal, and more. Before she founded the Smart Dating Academy, she worked for 12 years as the top global executive for AkzoNobel, a large multinational corporation. She has 2 degrees, because one wasn't enough, from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in finance and German. And she is happily married with 2 beautiful children. Welcome to the show, Bela Gandhi.
I am so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And I'm trying to remember, I think I first met you at the 92nd Street Y when Rachel Greenwald was speaking. Were you there?
Oh my gosh, that was like, I don't even know if I had a business card.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, Rachel Greenwald is a world-renowned dating coach, matchmaker. She teaches coaches how to become coaches, and she had spoken at the 92nd Street Y in New York City, and I had just started my career, and I was really excited to meet Rachel and hear Rachel because I had read her book, Haven't Met Hello, which was so eye-opening for me. And there you were in the front, and she was introducing her people. So did you train with Rachel?
I did in 2010 in January.
Oh, wow. So I've been doing this since about 2008. So we're right up there.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
I know, really. So this is the best industry in the world, the love industry. And I always like to start out by asking my guests to define what woman of value means to you.
You know, being a person that has values and then lives according to those values. For me, what I value most above everything are my relationships with people. I love. I love helping people, and I love mostly helping people find love. So I've been really happy to be able to have had some time in between careers to sit back and think about what I value, what I'm good at, and who I want to be when I grow up, which is, you know, how I got into this fun business.
Yeah. So what did motivate you? Like, what was that moment that you said, hey, I want to go from German and finance to dating coaching and starting this whole company? I mean, you have a company. It's a real deal.
You know, there were a lot of lily pads along the way. It wasn't, straight from university on, but my first inkling that I had any sense of being a Yenta matchmaker does go back to my days in Urbana-Champaign. And my roommate, I had the perfect roommate for me, right? We were very well matched. I was the extrovert who loved to go out after we studied, and my roommate was the quiet introvert. And so we were BFFs, and usually at 10:30 at night, I'd be like, all right, let's take off our glasses, put in our contact lenses, and let's go and kind of dance off our energy. So one night she said to me, I'm not going out with you. I'm too tired. I said, okay. So I went out and I met a guy through a friend of mine, and his name was Simon. And as I started talking to him, Sandy, I literally had that moment where like the room stopped and went into slow motion. And I sprung out of it. And I said to him, I'm like, you're going to marry my roommate. Who does that at the age 21? And he looked at me and he was like I had horns on my, he's like, you're crazy. And his girlfriend was standing like 3 women. And I had
was dating somebody.
right. So suffice it to say that they started dating 5 years later, my match that I told him that he was going to marry my roommate. And they've been happily married for 20 years and they have 3 kids and they live in the suburbs of Chicago. And so I knew, it's like, I just had this feeling like she's more introverted. He seems kind of cool. He's cute. She's cute. And just this whole thing flowed together. And then I did it again and again and again and again for more people in my life, all while I was traveling the world, running the manufacturing company, which was my family's business. And when we sold it, I had to step back and say, what do I want to be and what am I good at? So that's how I put this train on its track.
Wow. I love it. It's, you had this talent and you followed the breadcrumbs to making a career out of it and then getting training, and the rest is history. And what I'm curious about, because a lot of dating coaches like myself, we're solopreneurs, we work by ourselves, but you started a dating academy. So what inspired you to make this like a bigger business?
I think I came from bigger business, so I really didn't know another way. Like, okay, if you're going to start something, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, my dad, my grandfather, my brother, my uncle. So it's kind of, for me, it was just like, okay, this is what you do. You start in your bedroom and then you put a plan together, you put a process together. And my process, I did train with Rachel Greenwald. And one of the other most important factors was what I did to put my own plan together to find my husband. And we've been married for 22 years. And, because I loved narcissists, loved them, women, we love them, right? And so I dated my fair share of those until one day I said, what on earth am I doing? And I put my own, because I'm a nerdy finance person, I put my own spreadsheet together, like what attracted me to these people, what worked, what didn't work, was my responsibility, what was his. And through that, it led me to starting to date my husband, who I was friends with, didn't have chemistry with. So listen to that if you're a single person listening to this. And, the rest is putting it together and then starting to hire people and bring people on. Some is, part-time, some is full-time. So I really wanted it to be something that wasn't necessarily about me, but was a process that people could follow that worked.
Which is brilliant, really. And I love the story of transitioning from narcissists to your amazing husband, who started as your good friend. And I think that so many people, they want that, but they don't know how to transition into that. And I was just saying on my other podcast yesterday, I was interviewing someone who talked about how to have healthy relationships. She wrote a book on breadcrumbing and ghosting, which is all the new terms, and there's so many more that don't even, it's just too many terms. It's just like, these guys are not investing, period. You don't need 500 terms for that.
And these things have been happening since the beginning of time. This
correct.
Dating things like breadcrumbing and ghosting. Like, there's just more names now.
Exactly, which is hard to keep track of. And people are like, what does this mean? I'm just like, the guy isn't investing in you. Just walk away. Just not working. Yeah. But I had interviewed a woman named Linda Carroll who wrote a book called Love Cycles, and it was about the 5 stages of love. And she also came into my private coaching group, and she spoke to my ladies, and she said, listen, I was always magnetized to the narcissist. I could spot them in a room. I could find the one narcissist, right? And she said, right, so she had been married before to a narcissist, and she changed her brain. And this is what's so fascinating, is that with this work that both of us do, we really can rewire our brains to have attraction for somebody who's actually good for us, not bad for us, which you did so successfully.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it requires, fixing your picker it's hard, right? Even if you know this person is bad for you, they have red flags. We as human beings, we tend to do what's comfortable for us, things that we've done before that we're familiar with versus things that are intellectually right. So the gravitational pull back into the magnet of the narcissist is massive, and you don't know it sometimes until it's too late. So we're literally in the canoe with our clients, someone from my team or me, on a weekly basis saying, yes, no, yes, I know this one you're not feeling it, but you don't need immediate chemistry. I want you to go out with him again. And the best love stories that we have helped to author happen after the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th date. Nothing comes immediately. In fact, if one of my clients has too much chemistry on the first date, I'm like, red flag, my antennae are up. You are probably entering the lair of the narcissist.
Or you totally lose yourself in the process, right? And I have had, so many experiences with men who come on so strong in the beginning, and and I know you're the one, and I'm such a good judge of character, and I just can tell you're just such a special woman, and and I want to take you to a Broadway show, and then I'm going to take you here and there, and we just met for coffee, right? And so it's when you know these red flags, and you can smell it, you can taste it,
When you're a woman of value, then you know that that's a lot of false pretense, right?
Yeah.
And you need to be fed all of that and swept off your feet. So this is kind of a great segue into that. It's once you know the red flags and the green flags for a kind of partner that's going to make you happy, you're not as susceptible to all of that intoxicating talk and action that narcissists are amazing at, and what Hollywood has brainwashed us into believing a good relationship should start out like. That's why it's in movies, because it doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah.
Or it does happen in real life, but then you don't see the ending. You don't see when the person's like dropped flat like a pancake.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, and I think this was a great distinction for me when I learned the difference between a great date and a great relationship is it's very different often. And what people are looking for is that instant chemistry and that, oh my God, and the adrenaline rush. And what you're really looking for is somebody who you're safe with and somebody who you're going to be comfortable with for the rest of your life, who also excites you. But, it's got to have both elements.
Lust is nature's way of tricking us into attachment, right?
Yeah. Oh God, the attachment thing. That's a whole other conversation. I wanted to really just bring out something here, because anybody watching or listening, if you're listening on the podcast or watching this on the video, will see you have great energy. You really get very animated, and I know that you've been on all this major television and all these shows, and you and I have spoken about the fact that you had a tremendous fear of public speaking. Yeah. And I want to address that because nobody looking at you today could ever guess that. And can you speak to that and tell us what it was like before and how you overcame that fear?
Yeah, I didn't have it for a while when I was in my 20s, but then there was that one crucial meeting where suddenly I had to talk about a product that I didn't believe in. I didn't like it. And it was after my family's company was acquired by a large multinational. And they said, this is going to be the new brand, and this is the way you're going to talk about it. And I walked in to a meeting with existing clients that I had known for 8 years. And my mind went absolutely blank. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. And I left the room pretending I had a coughing fit. And from that point on, I had severe anxiety that would happen again, to the point where even if I was in a room with other people and being introduced, let's say at an industry meeting, and they would say, go around the room and just talk, tell us who you are and what you do and why you're here. I could feel my pulse in my neck. And so to be doing national media, on a weekly basis now has been a real journey. What I can tell you is it's unexpected. If you told me 10 years ago that you would be landing in a lunar capsule on Mars, or, doing 9 episodes with Steve Harvey and being fine with it, I would have been like, oh, dude, Mars all the way. I'm not doing that. Are you kidding me? I drove a forklift. I have a hard hat and steel-toed shoes. Like, that's what I was comfortable with. But, it's kind of my philosophy in dating, which I try to drink that Kool-Aid. And when I got my first request to be on television locally in Chicago, my first instinct was absolutely no. And my husband's like, yes, go jump out of the plane. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. What's the worst that can happen? It's Chicago's biggest network. There's 500,000 people watching. I'll suck. I'll run off the stage, maybe vomit, but I won't die. So I'm not kidding you. I stayed up the entire night. I practiced what I was going to say. I paced back and forth. The producer said 30 to 45 seconds, and I had it down. And the first segment went great. And the best advice, I called the producer at the station my TV mama. She said to me, she says, you're number one. Remember, if any of you listening can relate to this and you have this anxiety and you're asked to speak somewhere, she said, Bella, you're here for a reason. You know what you're talking about. You have something to tell people. She said, forget about the chaos. Don't look at anybody else. Look at the anchor. Have a conversation.
Yeah.
It was like, that was a great inflection point. And as soon as I became very present in the moment and just had that first conversation, I became myself. I lost all that anxiety. I became animated and I was laughing on segment. And and I'm hypercritical of myself, if I showed you 3 segments, if this was the very first one I did, year 3, year 8, I'm not sure any of us could pick out what the first segment was. So it's really just being super present in that moment. And do I still feel scared when I'm on a stage? Yeah, absolutely. But now, and I think that what I can tell you is practicing and doing something that you're afraid of, that's the only way you will get over the fear. It's exposure. If you're afraid of it, go do it. You might not be great at it. You might freeze up, but you know what? You did it. And you'll go, okay, I didn't die. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was, because whatever we're most afraid of, we've always made it 100,000 times worse in our mind than actually happens. And then you know what? Go do it again and again and again. And I forced myself to keep doing it almost against my will. I'm comfortable here one-on-one. You tell me to, get on stage in front of 3,000 people. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it today, but I make myself do it. And I'm always glad that I did it afterwards.
What a great lesson to teach everybody. And I can totally relate. I was the worst public speaker, and that was my whole life. I could not speak in front of a camera and on a stage, and I was married to a performer. I was married to a comedian for 23 years. He was on national television. We had a show together on Nickelodeon, and I was behind the scenes. I was one of the head writers. I did the art and the direction and a lot of the editing, but never camera. I mean, I was on camera for a little bit, just in the credits, but never on camera. And it was never a dream of mine. And in fact, one of the things he said to me after our show aired, and it was exciting, he said, your dream came true. You were on national television. And I was like, that's not my dream. That was your dream. I don't know what my dream is yet, but that was your dream. It was fun, but it wasn't my dream. So when I got into this industry, I realized I've got to be exposed. Otherwise, I'll be hiding. Otherwise, no one will know who I am. No one will know about my business. I can't hide anymore. And so I had to take the leap. And then I got this opportunity to do a TED Talk. And it was like, to go from not speaking to TED Talk, it was like, no way. Okay. And then it was, how do I get the support I need to get this to happen, and how do I write it? How do I speak it? So I hired support, and I went to Toastmasters, and I practiced. And So I totally agree with what you're saying, and this can be applied to every single aspect of our lives. It's when we get out of the comfort zone. It's when we force ourselves to do what's uncomfortable. That's where our self-esteem is built. That's where our self-worth is built. And, you are the perfect example of just do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
And because that's, I think, the only way to build true confidence isn't by looking in the mirror and saying, I'm great. Like, affirmations are good. And I think we need to recede our negative thought. But to build true confidence, it requires action. And that does require saying, okay, I'm going to do this even if I'm afraid of it. Like, if I look at the things that have given me the most confidence, it's hands-on, being in the moment. It's not reading about it, but it's actually doing it. So yeah, that is the truest way to build confidence in anything. It's like, if you want to become a great tennis player or a great golfer, you can read every tennis and golf book that exists, right? But until you pick that racket up, until you pick that club up, you don't know how to do it, and you're not going to be confident.
Yeah. So, which brings me to a question that a lot of women have around dating, that, do I have to be like all healed from my past relationships in order to date again? And they stay in this mode of, I'm gathering more information. I need to read another book. I need to watch another, series of interviews, or, hire another coach and, and just get better at the intellectual piece. And so what do you recommend? I kind of know what you're going to say, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, get yourself. I think the best thing I can say, where I see my clients over the last 10 years having success, that at a certain point, invest in yourself, invest in someone that feels good to you, that feels like home, and then do it. But do it with guardrails around you if you can. Like, I kind of equate ourselves to skydiving instructors. Like, you're going to go up in that plane, you want to do this, but nobody's going to let you jump out of that plane alone for the first several times. And that, if I was going to jump out of a plane, I certainly wouldn't want to do it alone. And here's my parachute, and what if it doesn't open? I'd feel much better if there was someone who knew how to do this and actually had their own chute. And I think that is one of the biggest advantages that our clients say to us is, I feel safe knowing that I have you in my dating canoe. So having that support around you is ideal. And if you're not in a position to have a dating coach or a dating academy, have a support group of people around you that will lift you up and elevate you through the process. But know the help that you need and seek that out. I don't know that we're ever fully healed from anything, from tragedy, from loss, from bad relationships. I think that at a certain point we make a choice to go on after we've worked on ourselves. But I think waiting for that moment of, okay, I'm healed, I'm ready. It's kind of like, for any of you that have had kids, you never quite know that you're ready to have kids. At a certain point, you just say, I'm going to do it. And then you realize, hell, I wasn't ready for this. Like, you're never really ready. And I think dating is really similar, but you really should get some help around fixing your picker if this is your chronic pattern, because that doesn't magically change itself.
Absolutely. And I love the two analogies, the guardrail and the jumping out of a plane with support. It's so true. I think, when I work with a client and I say, I'm going to walk you through online dating, we're going to go on together, I'm going to hold your hand through the process, they're like, oh, thank God. Because up until then, they had never had the support. And so it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have these false notions about dating and what works and what doesn't work based on their past. And also, sometimes their circle of friends actually do not help them. So you have to be careful who you choose, because a lot of people are what Lori Gottlieb calls idiot compassion, where they're like, yeah, the guy sucks, there's nothing wrong with you. They're like, well, maybe there is something you can learn when it keeps happening to you over and over and over again. It is a pattern that you got to look at.
So much idiot compassion, like, yeah, he sucks, what are you doing? Or, yeah, you should call him back for the 8th time. No, right? You shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah, it's a great term, idiot compassion. So Bela, what are you creating right now? What's happening in your business, in your life, besides your home renovations?
Yeah, besides massive home renovations, we just redid our website, smartdatingacademy.com.
Ooh,
We did it to line up with 9 exclusive episodes that we did with Steve Harvey on steveharvey.com, which was his private launch. So that's been, for those of you who haven't made a website, it's like giving birth to a child. We did that in 28 days. You usually have 9 months to get pregnant and give birth to a baby. So that is a work in progress. So if you haven't checked it out, check out smartdatingacademy.com. And we're also trying to, we've done a lot of webinars in the past where I will speak to a group of hundreds of people and teach them about dating. But one thing I really want to try to do is democratize the information that we're teaching our one-on-one clients, that can afford to have a one-on-one coach. But I think that there's so much need and hunger and thirst for this kind of information. So we're going to put together an online course to teach people the basics of that. At least, I feel like if we can provide the strategy, some tactics, some useful things that at least will give people a good running start and save one person from the clutches of a narcissist, I feel like it will have been a great investment.
that's a great idea. I think anytime you can take what you teach and create a system and show people, there are people who are do-it-yourselfers and there are people who want the one-on-one, and there's all types of learners. So it's really helpful to have all of that. And I can totally relate to the website giving birth. I just created the Woman of Value website this year, and it was such a long process because I didn't yet have a company. I had an idea and I wasn't sure where I was going yet. So to take it from zero to fruition and knowing who am I speaking to? Who am I serving? I kept changing, direction. And then I just said, okay, better done than perfect. And you have to, and finding a great web company for me was also huge, having the support. So
Yeah.
I think, what we're talking about today is relevant to anyone who wants to grow, and to me, a woman of value is somebody who wants to be bigger, who doesn't want to stay small. And like last night, I gave a talk at Toastmasters about how to deal with criticism, how to diffuse criticism, which is a big
Cool.
thing.
I want to hear that.
I have a tape of it. I can show you. But I think that what a lot of people do is they stay small. They say, okay, I'm going to hide. I don't want to ever be a public figure because then I'm opening myself up to criticism. But you also open yourself up to impacting so many more people. And so you have to learn how to deal with the negativity. And there are all kinds of people in the world. Actually, how have you dealt with, have you had it, have you had people come at you? Okay. How have you dealt with the criticism?
I look at it as being part and parcel of what happens when you put yourself out there. And I look at people, I try not to let it hurt my feelings, but you can always get those paper cuts, right? And I kind of try to look at them as paper cuts and not truth. And when people are saying something mean about me, I feel like they're coming from a place of hurt. And so I kind of look at them with compassion and bless them on their way, and hope that they stop all the internal hatred that they're projecting onto the world. So it's hard some days, but I think that when you realize it's never about you, it's about that person.
Yeah. It
And
takes a lot to get there.
It takes a lot to get there. And believe me, I have my share of war scars everywhere on this. This isn't some glib piece of advice or floating on a cloud. This is the school of hard knocks. When you do put yourself out there and you change careers and suddenly you're a woman of color and you're out there talking about dating and you're from a culture that comes from arranged marriages. Like, you can imagine the swirls that go along with that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get a little bit of a different mix of criticism because you're a woman of color and because of arranged marriages and all of that. And yeah.
So small And I think that what we do in our mind is we blow it up to be so big. But if I look at, 100 comments that I get, 99 are overwhelmingly awesome, supportive, encouraging, kind, makes me want to like do more for people. And it's that 1% that actually does it. So also putting that into its place for me, because our minds have a negativity bias and they want to expand, into like the size of this lemon here, one bad thing that someone says and it just sits up here like a tumor. It's like, no, let that go. Think about all the wonderful things people are saying about you all the time. That's what's true.
Yeah, good advice. And also we can apply this to dating because dating is filled with lots of no's. And a lot of people take that very personally. And it's really not personal. Most of the time, it's really just not a good fit. And so, I think that you brought up compassion, and to me, compassion is so key to really be a more compassionate person, helps you in every aspect of your life, and to just really understand the humanity of people. And and I think that's what makes people drawn to you also, is that you really have an understanding of how people need to be spoken to. And you're very optimistic, psychotically optimistic. I love the psychotic optimism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those people are most, I think people are good overall. And I think with regards to love exists for everyone. You just can't let yourself think, I'm too old, I'm too fat, there's no one good out there, everyone's a jerk or a narcissist. No, you just have to be in it to win it. You're like, all I have to do is date like hell to find him. That's it. Okay, that's it. And just because you hear a bunch of no's, that yes will come along. It's the same thing in your career, the same thing in school. Who hears yes all the time? But and we expect that. It's like, do you think you're going to get hired for every job that you interview for? No. How many college applications do kids send out today? And how many do they actually get in versus not? But in dating, we throw so much ration and the way we look at other pie pieces of our lives out the window, and it becomes so deeply wounding and deeply personal, right? And it's like, no, just stand back and say, well, if I didn't get a job offer and I interviewed at 15 places, I wouldn't just throw my hands up in the air and say, well, I'm unemployable, I'm just going to become homeless. No, you would shake trees harder. You'd apply for more. You'd cast your net out wide for other jobs. You would network more, but you wouldn't say, I'm unemployable. No, but in the dating world, we don't take that same purview to what we're doing in dating. And so many of us just quit, shut down, hibernate, say it's not for me, I can't do this. No, but partner search is like job search. Bam.
I agree. And I think we bring so much vulnerability to the table. So we're putting ourselves on the line, and it's also, how much do people share in the beginning? It's like, I just opened my heart. But with the right guidance, you're not opening your heart to every single person. It's the same with business. I used to get into business partnerships with people that I didn't vet properly, and it came back to bite me. So I learned, you don't just trust implicitly. You have a contract and you talk about things just like you do in dating. And so, yeah, it's just really important to be skeptical to some degree, but also to be optimistic and to see people as kind, and most people and are good people. And that was actually part of what I spoke about last night about the criticism, is to look at people with compassion and say, okay, that person's probably having a bad day. It's not personal. It helps you to calm down so that you're not in a power play with that person. And so the same thing with dating. You don't get on the defensive. You don't say, well, why didn't you pick me? What's wrong with you? And why you just use me for a booty call? It's like these people who have these conversations that you just walk away with dignity and just keep moving.
Exactly. Don't take it personally.
Yeah, so important. All right. So I'm going to take you into the lightning round now. Are you ready? Ready. Okay. The first is to fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Oh gosh, there's so many adjectives. Smart enough.
Smart?
Mm-hmm.
So interesting that your company is Smart Dating Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. So
Yeah.
how did that change for you?
It's a lot of work. I was always a straight A student, but I felt like, I was always trying hard to get the good grades. So I thought the message that was erroneously implanted in my young head is, if I have to work at things, then I must not be naturally smart.
Mm.
What? Right? And so that's something I work around a lot. So I'm always the over preparer, and I'm taking lots of steps before that make it look like there weren't a lot of steps. But now I tell myself, like, that's just why, that's what makes you successful, is you do care and you are prepared and you don't wing things. And that doesn't make you not smart. It makes you actually competent and good at what you do. So it's reframing all of these things.
Mm. And I have to say that every guest I've had has had such insecurities about certain things. There's a common theme among women who are successful, and they often feel like an imposter. They are perfectionists. They work really hard. They're constantly reinventing and finding new ways to show their genius, the zone of genius. And I think that is the key to success. It's that you're never complacent. And it comes with, I used to feel like I wasn't enough, but it's what you do with it that counts. You didn't stay stuck in that feeling. You worked through it, and now you reframed it.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
Constant work.
Yeah, totally. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Lack of knowing what I was truly good at. When I was the straight A kid, like, you put me in a place and you give me a goal, I'd figure it out. But I had always been given a goal. And I think for the first time, it's like, you go to high school, you got to have great grades, get into a good college, get 2 degrees, get the best job you can in finance after that, work for your family's company. And I think when we sold our business and I realized I don't want to be here forever and move to Nashville and get promoted with a big corporation, it was the first time I had to sit back and actually say, what do I value? What do I want in my life? What makes me happy? Because suddenly everybody else's goals that I had always been working towards, or the ones that were just put in front of me, and I had always shut the lights out at, it's like, well, now I have to set the purpose and the plan. So yeah, huge inflection point.
Yeah, choosing what's right for you.
Choosing what's right and having that conversation with yourself. Okay, what would I do for free every day because I love it, right? And then make that list. And out of those, what am I actually good at? And that's kind of how I put this business together, piece by piece.
And how can I make money at it too?
Small little detail.
Small little. That has to be the intersection of all 3 of those things.
Small little detail.
Yeah, the money piece.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think you said you were an artist also, something about selling a piece of art. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, it's funny. So in between when we sold our company and I was kind of felt like I was free floating, like, who am I going to be? I'm 30 years old. I don't have an identity anymore. Like, if I'm not the VP of this business. So my mother-in-law is an artist, and I was talking to her, and my husband and I had been married for a few years, and we had these big walls around us. I said, gosh, I'd really love to buy a giant piece of loft artwork, like something abstract, like a big Rothko looking piece. But, it's sell my car and buy a giant piece of art. And she said, honey, if you can see what you want in your mind, you can paint it. And I said, what? So she took me to an art supply store, helped me get some canvas, some acrylic paint, and again, Bella dives deep immediately into something. I got all these painting books and I started doing abstract art. So I had a bunch of pieces. Every day after I'd come home from my corporate job, I'd start painting, and I wanted to master shading. And then we would just throw all these canvases up on the wall. And we had a birthday party for my husband, and our friends said, where did you guys buy all this art from? And I was like, buy it. did this. They're like, these are actually kind of interesting. You should do something with this. Like, oh, okay. So I applied for a summer art fair, like the people that, that you see with like the little canopies and like a school parking lot in the summertime. I sent a bunch of slides in. I got into the art fair. I was like, oh my God, I got into an art fair. So I started painting all this work. And during that fair, which was, I think, 10 hours, I sold 3 pieces of art. And for me, even, it's like you're making a great corporate salary, but that, whatever those paintings sold for, $500, $700, $1,000 that weekend, it was the best feeling. I thought, oh my God, I painted those with my hands and someone wants to hang that in their house ad infinitum in their living room. Like, are you kidding me? So it was incredibly personal and beautiful. So I did that for a couple of years. And if I took you all on a tour through my house, I could show you 20 different pieces of art that still hang in our house. It's like our personal art junkyard, but I did a lot of commissions. I did a lot of art fairs. I was at the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. And once I started Smart Dating Academy, I just didn't have time to do it anymore.
Wow, what a story. So you went from, again, you didn't just do it, you did it up. And so here's another example, like most people who paint on the side and it's just a hobby, but you're going to the merchandise fair, you're doing all these big things, you're selling, you're pricing them pretty high for a beginning artist. And I used to do all these fairs. I was a working artist my whole life, and until I did coaching, and coaching to me is very creative, and I just need to plug my creativity in somewhere. I don't care where it is. So people say, do you miss the art? And I don't really miss it most of the time, but I have done art workshops with people, coaching related workshops where people will have free painting through a process, and it frees them up to have insights into who they are. It's an amazing experience. I want to bring that back in my live retreats because it's so powerful.
That is, yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah. And also another really cool thing is making art, destroying it, and then recreating it. And that also lets people let go, because that's a really hard thing for people to do. I'm sure you see this all the time. They get very tied into, oh my God, this is a piece I made and it will never be made again. And so it's a watercolor and they tear it into little pieces and scrunch it up and they're like, no. But then what they recreate is something completely uniquely different and equally beautiful. So, yeah.
It's really funny that you say that. I created this series, which started with one, and it was called Enigma. And it was 4 feet by 5 feet and this beautiful blues and violet. And my plan was to give it to my parents as a gift for their house. But I had an open wall at an art fair. And so I just put the painting there because I needed something big enough, but it was their gift. And so somebody came by and, and I priced it like at $3,500, like some price that I'm like, no one's going to pay that. This investment banker came by. He's like, that would be perfect in my office. Can I buy that? And I was like, well, and my mom elbowed me in the stomach. She's like, yes, it's for sale. Looked at me and she goes, you're the artist. You can make that again.
Yeah.
And it was like this, oh, okay. My parents, again, I come from a business family. They're like, absolutely. She can
take the money.
Take the money. Good Indian people. Take the money. We don't need the gift.
I love it. That's great.
Right. So you can do it, but it is that like, I can't, how could I reproduce that? That's for you guys. That was for your space in your house. They're like, sell it. So I made 7 more. Every time I made one, it would go. I'm like, wow. Okay. You never know what's going to hit.
No, you don't. but you hit a lot.
So crazy.
Yeah. I love that story.
You're resuscitating parts of my brain that have been dormant for a decade, Sandy.
I love it. I love it. I like unpeeling the onion and finding all the layers that hide underneath that exterior.
You have pierced the veil for sure.
That's great. So were your parents an arranged marriage? Was that
Ish.
what?
They
Yeah.
met on a Sunday. They were arranged in the sense, like nobody says, you know, you are going to marry this person. I mean, I think that happens maybe in the very back villages still, but Indians have it right. They set up a bunch of speed dates for their kids, right? And it's all socioeconomic based. Like you know who your people are in your strata, and as soon as you're of marriageable age, the door starts opening up and there's coffees and they set you up on lots of dates. So my mom was like date 35 for my dad over a weekend, and he saw her walk up. They had a chat. That was a Sunday. They went out Wednesday. They got engaged on Thursday, and they were married 72 hours later. And
Oh my God.
they just celebrated their 50-year anniversary.
Wow.
Right. They knew nothing about it. I mean, it's like their extended families knew each other, but here's this 20-year-old woman that agreed to marry this 28-year-old guy that was living it was an Indian guy that moved to Detroit, like bananas. And she gets on a plane and moves country. So amazing, crazy.
Yeah.
It's, my parents are immigrants, and I always say we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Everything we've done and accomplished is 100% because of what they did and accomplished.
Wow. It's amazing. And there are a lot of people from India in my Toastmasters club. And so I've gotten to be very close with a lot of them, and the stories they tell about childhood and the lessons learned. Some of them grew up in abject poverty and never, just like one guy just never had chicken. He wanted chicken. And his mother said, go get a job, get a good degree, and you can buy as much chicken as you want. And but it's just these life lessons that we learn from where we came, whether it was a positive experience or a negative one, we learn.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Indians are marriage first, then love. And I think that there's something to that. It's a 10% divorce rate. Is everybody happy? No. Not at all, but there is something to walking into something and saying, you know what, we're going to make this work. And
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier about getting that idea of the bells ringing and the rainbows and the butterflies out of your head, because it's what you create and it's the intention you bring. And I think, I've experienced the same thing in the Jewish tradition, and I grew up Orthodox, and a lot of people were set up and very young, got married very young, barely knew each other. And it's the intention. They said, we're going to work hard to make this work, not we're going to look for what's wrong and try and get divorced, and I think we live in a very throwaway culture about everything. And it's, to value relationships, to value people is so important. It's the most important thing.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Like the Harvard study said, relationships are everything in our lives. It's
they are.
They define us. The quality and the depth of your relationships will determine your happiness over a lifetime. So have good ones, guys. Have good ones. And if it's not making you happy, address it or get out.
Yep. Know what to look for, know what to say. All those skill sets. How to say it. Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, communication is so key.
Yeah.
All right, Bella, here's another question. What is a mistake that you made in the past that taught you an important life lesson?
I have to pick from a repertoire of lessons coming through my head. I think it's being afraid of what people think, being afraid of failure. I left my job at ExxonMobil in 2006, and I didn't start this little enterprise until late 2009, partly because I lacked the confidence to know what my own purpose was. I hadn't been through my own exercise yet, but I was so afraid, having come from a family of people that have started businesses, they've done well. Like, what would people say if it didn't work? What would people say? Like, you ran a big manufacturing company you're going to be a matchmaker? Like what? And I think that like playing out those dumb stories in my head, which never came true, if there was a mistake in that, it's what worrying about what others think or worrying about what I think others will think has to be a mistake that I've made 100 times, and I'm committed from this point on in my life to not doing that. I'm not going to, because most likely they're not thinking about me and how I'm failing. They're worried about what I think about them. And it's, as humans, our brains are so messy with our wiring, and really understanding, like, stop worrying about that stuff. Just do it. I could have started this 3 years before.
I think you need to write a book called Just Do It.
Do it with the swoosh.
With the swoosh, right? I think that's taken, but
right? What are you going to say about this?
the Bela Gandhi approach to life. Just do it. Just get on the stage. Just do the business. Just
grab your instructor. Get on the stage. Do crazy stuff.
Yeah, create artwork. Just sell it for a lot of money. I mean, it's like, yeah, you have a whole, and you know what? And parenting is really, you know, we've really screwed up parenting in this generation, and it brings to mind how I wanted to raise my children to make mistakes, to find for themselves what it is to get out there and do it, do the scary stuff. Don't have us as parents doing it for you. We have to help you with that science project and make sure your paper is perfect. It doesn't teach our kids anything. And so again, self-esteem, start it young. Let's raise a generation of kids who have the self-worth, who don't have to go through all this mess that we're going through as adults.
Take your own ego out of it, parents.
Yes.
These are not extensions of you. They're not reflections of you. And if you put your stuff on them, it's a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so common. 15-year-old
daughter, 11-year-old son. We're walking through it day by day.
You're in the muck. And I've got a 24-year-old daughter, a 28-year-old son, and a 31-year-old daughter, and 2 granddaughters.
How do you have grandkids?
I have 2 years old and 5 years old. They're coming from Israel tomorrow morning. So excited, and they are so delicious. And so all the mistakes we make as parents, we get to undo as grandparents. It's the best. So you get to the other side. I mean, the teen years are, I always say it should be an exchange program where somebody else takes your teenager and you take theirs, because they'll be kinder to you if they're not your kids. And then you take them back when they're like 19, 20. They appreciate you and they thank you. You're such a good mom. I hated you, but now I appreciate you. All right. So.
Starting to sweat.
All right. Here's another question, and then we have one more and we're done. What is the best advice that you can give to a woman who wants to feel more empowered, who wants to step into her value?
Understand what your value is and what's important to you and what makes you feel good about yourself. And if you don't know what that is, think about people first that are of value to you. Like, who do you value? And if that helps you to distill out what you value in yourself, you know, and do bring more of that into your life. Don't be afraid to do that. And what I would say is, you don't have to do it. Whatever you love to do doesn't have to become your job. Just bring more of it into your life. So often I see people that are like, well, you know, I love to paint. Maybe I should turn that into a business. I said, unless you want to run a business, keep doing what you love within it. And as part of date coaching, I think, you know, all the plate of life is messy, right? And work affects dating, right? And I hear a lot from my clients about why, you know, how unhappy they are at work and how work. And we put so much emphasis on work and our happiness. But I tell them, like, why don't you start bringing more joy into your life? After work, why don't you go take those singing lessons? Why don't you go take public speaking lessons? Do things that bring you joy and watch how your job suddenly becomes a little more tolerable. right? We just let things suck us in, and we don't do the things that bring us joy, especially women, right? We're so involved with taking care of other people, nurturing 3 children and 2 grandchildren and clients, that we don't kind of sit back and put our own oxygen mask on, but bring things into your life that you love and you value, and watch how your happiness starts to notch up.
So true. All right. So last question, Bella. How would you like to be remembered?
As a kind, compassionate, smart, we'll come back to that word, good human being, a good daughter, a good sister, a good wife, a great friend, a great mom, and a great inspirer of people.
Well, you're doing it.
Ditto, right back at you.
Well, thank you so much, Bella. This has been amazing. I'm so honored that you came onto my show, and I look forward to seeing more amazingness from the Bela Gandhi movement.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored, and it was a delight to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.